Okay, let's get into it. We're going to tear down the classroom walls today and do a deep dive into what some people are calling, and it's not an exaggeration, the biggest revolution in K-12 education in maybe a century. We're talking about the AI teacher.
It's definitely not just a trend. I mean, you could almost call it an intervention, and one that's born out of, well, necessity.
Yeah.
If you just look at the raw data, the system we have now it's fundamentally broken. We are spending a staggering $1 trillion a year on K-12 education just in the U.S.
1 trillion, and the ROI on that.
It's just not there. You see low academic performance, these persistent skill gaps, and the standards that just seem to be sliding downwards year after year. The money is there, but the efficiency, the actual learning, it's not.
Right. And I think most of us, we feel that intuitively. We know something's wrong, but it's hard to put your finger on exactly why. And the proponents of this new model, they say the core problem is the design of the school day itself. It's a time-based system.
That's the critical failure point.
Right.
It's an inheritance from, 2 centuries ago? It's a factory model.
It's a factory model, exactly.
Designed for an economy that doesn't exist anymore. The teacher stands up there in front of, say, 30 students, gives a standardized lecture for 50 minutes, and then a bell rings.
Then everyone moves on.
Everyone moves on. Whether you got it or not, mastery is completely optional. And the result is predictable, right? Gaps start to form, they get wider, students fall behind, and the teacher's just stuck. They're constrained by that rigid schedule. They can't possibly get everyone caught up.
So today we are diving into a really radical, almost utopian attempt to fix this. It's the 2-hour learning platform, and it's championed by a place called Alpha School. And their claim, it's just audacious.
It really is.
They believe they can use AI to make kids learn 10 times faster. 10! And the stated goal is to get 95% of their 8th graders to achieve what's currently considered top 1% performance in the country.
Which is, just to be clear, statistically, that's genius level compared to their peers.
Yeah.
And look, a claim like that level of acceleration, it demands some really intense scrutiny. So that's our mission in this deep dive. We have to get under the hood, go way beyond the marketing slogans. We're going to examine the learning science, which has actually been around for decades. We'll look at the specific tech they're using, these, controversial gamification methods they use for motivation, and most importantly, the external data. Does it actually support this idea that an AI can be the main driver of a child's growth? Or is something else going on?
The founder of this whole movement has this fascinating way of framing why this is all happening right now.
Yeah.
They see generative AI not just as another tool, but as the light microscope for education.
And that's such a compelling analogy because it really grounds the technology in history. Think about medicine before the microscope.
Right. Doctors were just working in the dark.
Completely. Treating symptoms, guessing at causes. The microscope let them finally see the germs, the organisms causing the disease. It changed everything.
So the argument here is that AI is that instrument. It finally lets us see and, more importantly, scale these proven learning concepts, the secrets to mastery that have just been locked away in academic papers for decades.
Exactly. They were inaccessible. Now, maybe they aren't.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If the tech is the microscope, what's the underlying science that makes a 10x speed claim even remotely possible? What are the foundational principles they're leveraging to get this kind of hyper-efficiency?
It really starts with a very aggressive diagnosis of why students fail. And it always comes back to one thing: prerequisites. They use sports analogies all the time, and they make it so clear.
Let's use a basketball analogy. Say you have a point guard, a key player, but he loses the ball 20% of the time just dribbling down the court.
The coach isn't going to work on advanced plays.
Of course not. That would be insane.
Absolutely. Any good coach says, stop. We are dribbling until you have 99% mastery, full stop. In academics, it's the exact same problem. When a student is failing, it's almost never about the complex calculus problem in front of them.
It's about something from years ago.
Almost always. It's a fundamental lack of mastery of the basics from 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. The foundation is cracked.
And the power of the AI, then, is its ability to find those exact cracks, to diagnose those missing prerequisites. Something a human teacher trying to manage 30 different kids at 30 different levels, they can't do it. Not efficiently.
Precisely. And that diagnosis brings us right back to maybe the most important piece of educational research in the last 50 years. Benjamin Bloom's 2 sigma problem.
This was a paper from 1984.
Yes, and it didn't invent this idea of individualized learning, but it gave us the objective proof of just how powerful it is.
For anyone who's not familiar with Bloom's findings, Just how big was the difference he found? What did he actually do in that study?
So Bloom compared 3 different groups. First, you had your standard classroom, the control group. Second, a small group instruction model. But the third one, that was the key. It was individualized, one-on-one human tutoring, but, and this is critical, combined with a mastery-based system.
So you couldn't move on until you actually proved you knew the material.
Exactly. You had to show 90% proficiency on the current unit before you're even allowed to see the next one.
And the results were just revolutionary.
They were. They show that the average student in that third group, the tutoring and mastery group, improved their performance by 2 full standard deviations.
2 standard deviations. Let's just put that in real terms for people.
It means the average tutored student scored better than 98% of the students in the regular classroom. You could take a completely average C student and, relative to their peers, turn them into an A+ student, a top performer.
That's astonishing. But it also raises the problem that's haunted education for 40 years. How do you scale that? One-on-one human tutoring for every child, for every subject. It's just prohibitively expensive, logistically impossible.
And that's why he called it the 2 sigma problem. He proved the best method existed, but we couldn't actually use it. And this is where the AI comes in. The alpha model is explicitly positioned as the scalable solution to Bloom's problem.
It replaces the human tutor for that direct instruction part.
Exactly. It provides that infinitely patient, non-judgmental, instant feedback on all those prerequisites, which finally makes that mastery-based approach financially viable.
So the AI is solving the logistics, but to get that kind of speed, students also have to change how they think. This brings us to cognitive load theory. How does the AI use our own brain's mechanics to speed things up?
Cognitive load theory is so central to this. Our working memory, that mental scratch pad where you process new information, it's tiny. Think of it like having just a handful of mental slots you can use at one time. The complexity of a new math problem you can solve is directly limited by how many of those slots you have free.
So if I'm trying to do a big multi-step algebra problem, but I still have to burn one of those precious slots to calculate 7 times 8 equals 56, because I don't just know it.
You're crippling yourself.
Right. I'm wasting my brain power on the basics.
Precisely. You're wasting cognitive resources on low-level retrieval. The AI is designed to minimize that, what they call extraneous load, and maximize the intrinsic load, the effort you spend on the actual new, hard concepts.
And the way it does that is by drilling for fluency.
Yes, the brain has this pathway to automate simple tasks. When a fact, like a multiplication table or a historical date, is memorized to the point of fluency, it basically moves out of that slow, limited working memory and into long-term memory. It becomes automatic.
It doesn't take up a slot anymore.
It doesn't take up a slot. And that frees up a massive amount of resources for higher-level thinking, for problem-solving. The AI is relentless. It just drills those prerequisites until fluency is achieved, automating the simple stuff so your brain can focus on the hard stuff.
This level of efficiency then allows the AI to completely personalize the lessons, totally ignoring a student's age or grade level.
And this is maybe its most important job.
Yeah.
Personalized, and I'd say ruthless lesson delivery. The system only cares about the student's knowledge graph, not the calendar, if you're a 6th grader. But the AI detects you have 4th grade level gaps in fractions.
You're getting 4th grade fraction problems.
You're getting 4th grade fraction problems until you master them. There's no shame, there's no judgment, there's only progress.
That sounds incredibly efficient, especially for kids who have fallen behind. I mean, the traditional system budget's what, like 180 hours a year for a subject? How much does this cut that down?
The claims are, they're staggering. The founder says that for most grade-level subjects, it takes their students between 20 and 30 focused hours to complete.
20 hours versus 180.
It's a different world. So much of that traditional classroom time is just lost to logistics, behavior management, or repeating material for the 5 kids who already know it.
So let's put that in practical terms. A student transfers into this system and they're, let's say, 3 years behind in 3 core subjects: math, science, reading. What does it take to catch them up?
In the old system, that's often an impossible task. The gap just gets wider. In this model, they project that student needs about 60 hours of focused, personalized instruction, 20 hours per subject.
60 hours.
And they are completely caught up. They go from being significantly behind to being on par with or even ahead of their peers in just a few months. That massive acceleration is the core of that 10x gain.
Okay, but this is where I have to push back a little on the science. Bloom's system, your own description.
Yeah.
It sounds grueling. It requires incredible effort. Learning that fast has to come at a cost, right?
Yeah.
It means constant, intense focus.
That's a fair challenge.
Yeah.
And it brings us to the second, and honestly, probably the harder half of this whole equation. All that learning science is the what and the how. But the founders of this model, they say it over and over, motivation is 90% of learning.
And this is where so many previous edtech products just fell flat. They were good at delivering content, but they completely ignored the reality of a modern kid's life.
Exactly. The competition for a student's attention isn't another school. It's Fortnite. It's TikTok. It's platforms that are engineered by PhDs in psychology to hook you with dopamine loops. If your learning software isn't at least as compelling, the kid's going to check out in 5 minutes.
So how does their AI engine, they call it Incept, how does it try to solve this 90% problem of motivation?
Incept is designed to be this ultimate personalized coach. It tailors everything based on two critical inputs. First, the academic data we talked about, the student's knowledge graph, what they know, what they don't.
And the second input is the key to engagement.
Right. It's the student's specific interests, their hobbies, what they're passionate about, whether that's dinosaurs or esports or, astrophysics.
And the generative AI just creates content on the fly.
An unending stream of it. Questions, problems, scenarios, all customized to perfectly align with both their knowledge level and their personal interests. And it's all done to maintain one crucial metric.
The accuracy rate.
The student's accuracy rate has to hover between 80 and 85%.
That 80 to 85% number seems really specific. It sounds like finding the sweet spot in a video game.
It is the ultimate sweet spot. It lines up perfectly with Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. If the question's too easy, say 95% accuracy,
You get bored.
you disengage. If they're too hard, let's say below 70%, you get frustrated and you quit. But that 80-85% zone means it's always challenging enough to feel like you're making progress, that you're being pushed.
Yeah.
But it's never so hard that you give up. It's pure game design theory applied to learning.
And the sheer amount of information they expect a student to absorb is just, it's radically different.
Oh, completely. They're trying to shatter the norms. You sit through a passive lecture at a university, you might retain, 1 to 5 facts in an hour?
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. Alpha's current system aims for 20 to 40 facts retained per hour because it's all active retrieval.
Mm.
And the founder thinks with better Gen AI, they could push that to 100 facts an hour.
Wow.
The goals are aggressive because the delivery is so hyper-efficient.
But that level of performance requires constant focus, which brings us to a major point of friction for parents and a huge tension in this model: surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
The founder is vehemently against general AI tools. He calls them cheat bots.
And this is a really important structural choice. He argues pretty convincingly that if you just give a kid a standard chatbot, 90% of them will immediately use it to bypass the hard work. They'll just ask it for the answer.
So it becomes a search engine, not a tutor.
Exactly. So if you can't have a human teacher watching every kid, and you can't trust the kid to stay on task, how do you ensure engagement? This is where the computer vision model comes in, and it's controversial.
Very.
It's a huge technical investment.
Yeah.
They use these sophisticated computer vision models that are constantly watching the student's screen. And not just the screen, but their behavior. We're talking eye tracking, click patterns, how often they're scrolling.
And all of that data feeds into a feature they call the waste meter. I mean, that sounds intense. It sounds like a complete loss of privacy for the sake of efficiency.
It does sound dystopian if you
Yeah.
frame it that way. But the philosophy inside Alpha is that it's a coach, not a punisher. The system gives you real-time data. It'll show a student, hey, you were off task for 15 minutes, or you are currently wasting 50% of your learning time by scrolling.
And that external feedback, that objective data, it changes the conversation. It's not about being bad or dumb. It's about being inefficient.
Exactly. When a student sees they could be done with their work so much faster if they just focused, the desire to get their time back becomes this massive internal motivator. The waste meter is just proof that their lack of progress is tied to their habits.
Yeah.
And it actually prompts kids to go ask the human guides for coaching. They'll literally say, how do I learn better so I can finish faster?
It's intense, but the incentive, getting your freedom, is huge.
It's huge.
And speaking of incentives, we have to talk about the external rewards, the fuel that gets this whole engine started, and probably the part that makes most parents, especially those raised on the idea of learning for learning's sake, the most uncomfortable?
Oh, there is a deep-seated cultural resistance to paying kids to learn. We saw polling data, something like 76% of Americans are against paying kids for grades or attendance.
Wow.
Some surveys even found it was less palatable than, like, corporal punishment. The general view is that if you pay for it, you cheapen it. You kill the internal love of learning.
And yet, Alpha doubles down on this with something called GT Bucks. How are they designed to get around that criticism that kids will just cheat or rush to get the money?
The design is really meticulous here. A student earns 10 cents for every lesson they master. But, and this is the key, they must achieve 80% accuracy or higher.
Ah, so it's tied to the mastery.
If you score lower, you get no money, and you have to repeat the lesson. That high bar is the behavioral guardrail. It forces deep engagement because you can't just rush and guess your way to the reward.
And the rewards themselves aren't just points in a game, they're tangible. They connect that academic work to the real world.
Absolutely. The bucks are used for things that fuel their passions, buying concert tickets, funded a project, or, and this is designed to teach financial literacy, they can invest it in a student-run account.
I heard about this. There's a penalty for taking money out early.
A 50% early withdrawal penalty. It's a direct lesson in delayed gratification and responsibility. It connects mastering fractions to the real-world consequences of saving, of loss aversion, of investment returns. It makes the abstract concrete.
This entire motivational structure seems to tie back directly to the work of Anders Ericsson, the researcher who studied expertise.
It really does. It's like the philosophical scaffolding for the whole thing. Ericsson studied world-class musicians, athletes, you name it. And he found this profound truth. Almost none of them loved the grueling daily practice.
They were motivated by the goal.
By the goal, the outcome, the status that came with mastery. And he described motivation as this three-stage process. You have to go through the stages.
And stage one is all about that external push.
That's stage one. Parental or authority approval. That's the GT bucks. That's wanting to please your guide. That's wanting to get your time back. It's all designed to just build the habit. Then you get to stage two, which is peer approval. You start to get status among your friends for being good at something.
And then finally, the Holy Grail, stage three.
Self-actualization. This is where the motivation becomes internal. The student just sees themselves as a learner, as an expert. They do it because it's part of their identity now.
So the model basically admits that most kids aren't born at stage three.
It says almost no one is, especially not kids who've been struggling in the traditional system. They need that powerful, tangible, external push at stage one to build the habit of focused learning. The incentives, the waste meter, they're all just tools to enforce that habit long enough for the intrinsic motivation to finally kick in.
Okay, let's shift from the theory and the tech to the reality on the ground. What does a day actually look like for one of these students? How is that 2-hour learning session structured?
Well, the name is a little misleading. The academic session, it usually takes up about 3.5 hours in the morning, say from 8:30 to noon.
So it's not literally 2 hours.
No. The founder admits that getting 2 hours of that hyper-focused, deep work, it takes more than 120 minutes once you factor in breaks and transitions. But compared to the 6-hour traditional day, the efficiency gain is still obviously massive.
And during that time, students work through what they called their minimums. What are those, and how do they get to choose what they work on?
The minimums are their daily requirements, usually something like 8 to 12 lessons they have to master, all tailored to their specific knowledge gaps. But the agency's key. The student decides the pace. They decide the order. If you feel like a math morning, you do math first. If you finish early, you get your time back. That's a huge motivator.
And their progress is visualized, right? Like a fitness tracker.
Yeah, exactly like an Apple Watch. They have these rings on their interface that they have to close. And closing a ring confirms two things. First, high accuracy, that 80% or higher rule. And second, it confirms via the vision system that they actually spent the required time engaged with the material.
So no rushing, no guessing.
None.
And the physical environment reflects their progress too. This idea of graduation to freedom, they're literally earning the right to be comfortable.
It's fascinating. New students, they start in a very traditional setup. Desks, chairs, what they call standard school. And their first goal is to prove they can be a consistent 2-hour learner.
Hit their rings every day.
Hit their rings, master their minimums. And once they prove they can do that, they unlock privileges. They graduate to freedom.
Which means they can choose how and where they learn best.
Exactly. They get access to beanbag chairs, standing desks, even these soundproof phone booths for total focus. The founder told a story about a kid who was a notorious talker, a big distraction, who started voluntarily choosing the phone booth because he realized he could finish his work faster in there.
So he's regulating himself.
He's self-regulating because the incentive, getting his time back, is so powerful. The system is built on the belief that if you give kids the right motivation, they will figure out the habits they need to achieve it.
So if academics are done by noon, what on earth happens in the afternoon? This is that high support, part of their high standards, high support philosophy.
The afternoons are absolutely crucial. They're dedicated entirely to life skills and projects, things that go way beyond a typical curriculum. They're teaching resilience, practical economics, leadership.
And these projects are not simulations. We're talking about fifth graders running an actual food truck or managing an Airbnb.
They are high-stakes, real-world experiences. And this is where you see that the human guides are irreplaceable. The AI is great for instruction, but for application, you need a person. With the food truck, the kids do everything. Market research, getting permits, sourcing ingredients, marketing, and dealing with real-time problems. Like, what do you do when the generator breaks an hour before the lunch rush?
Wow. That's a real lesson.
It is.
Yeah.
And the Airbnb project is even more complex. They're learning about mortgages, interest rates, interior design, maintenance schedules, even rental income taxes.
And if they mess up?
They feel it. If they get a bad rating because the place wasn't clean, they see the economic consequence. The guides are there to facilitate, but the students are accountable for the outcome.
And this practical knowledge gets reinforced with these individualized check charts.
Yes. These are task lists of non-academic skills you have to master to advance to the next level. It is about building a competent person, not just a good test taker.
And the skills on these charts are pretty ambitious.
They're very ambitious. Things like give a TED-style talk to an audience of 300 people, assemble complex IKEA furniture on your own, identify all 50 U.S. states on a map. These things are non-negotiable for advancement. It reinforces that academics are only part of the picture.
Okay, but at the end of the day, the whole model's legitimacy comes down to objective third-party results. How do they actually quantify this 10x claim?
They lean very heavily on MAP scores, measures of academic progress. These are standardized tests taken by millions of kids, so it's a solid objective benchmark. And they tell parents, straight up, don't trust our report cards, trust the third-party test.
And the growth data they're showing is what gets all the attention.
It's stunning. Their classes routinely score in the top 1% to 2% nationally. They show data where kindergartners, almost all of them, are hitting the top 1% of MAP scores by the end of their first year.
The key metric they use is MAP growth speed, or MGS. That's how fast they're learning compared to their peers.
Right. And the founder claims that, on average, their students increase their MAP scores 2.6 times faster than similar kids nationally. The Gifted Pilot program showed an MGS of up to 5 times faster.
And why does that acceleration matter so much, beyond just getting a high score?
It matters because of what they call relative rank. The top 1% of third graders, which is their target, already have more core content knowledge than the median high school graduate.
That's a crazy stat.
It is. So by rocketing a kid's relative rank up so early, you're creating this compounding knowledge advantage for the rest of their life. Future learning just becomes easier and faster. It all ties back to that cognitive load theory.
Results this good, of course, bring on enormous skepticism. We have to talk about the biggest criticism, selection bias. This is a private school, and it is not cheap.
And that's a criticism that has to be taken very seriously. Tuition is high. $40,000 a year in Austin, $75,000 in San Francisco. Critics argue that these scores are just a result of a massive selection effect.
You're getting the kids of motivated, affluent, highly educated families, engineers, tech execs who would probably do well anywhere.
Exactly. They would succeed regardless of the AI model because they have every advantage at home. The parents prioritize education. They have the resources.
So how does Alpha counter that?
They acknowledge the bias in their top-tier GT schools, which are explicitly selective, but they point to their broader campuses where they actively scholarship local kids, and some of those schools are 50-50, affluent, and less affluent. If that 2.6x growth holds true across that more diverse group, that's a powerful argument that the model is the driver, not just the family background.
But they need more data on that.
Oh, they absolutely need more independent longitudinal data to silence those critics.
And now we get to the internal data that I think is the most compelling evidence that the AI on its own is not a silver bullet. It's powerful, but it is not enough.
This is probably the most crucial finding for anyone thinking AI can just replace teachers. They ran a homeschool beta program, used the exact same software, the same AI tutor, Incept,
Yeah.
but it didn't have the school, the guides, the culture of accountability, the waste meter, the
It's
incentives.
just the software. And what happened?
The kids in that program only achieved 1 times learning growth.
So, average.
Perfectly average. They learned at the same rate as the national average for the couple of hours they were on the software. It was fine, but is nowhere near the 2.6x or 5x growth they see in the full immersion school.
That 1 times figure is the smoking gun. It proves the AI is necessary. It does the individualizing, but it is absolutely not sufficient. The acceleration comes from everything else.
Absolutely. The environment, the human coaches, the culture, the accountability from the surveillance, the financial incentives, that's what fills the motivational gap the software can't touch. The AI is the engine, but the school is the fuel, the steering, and the entire support crew.
And that's such a powerful lesson for parents who, they fall in love with the promise of this tech-driven learning, only to find out that a software-only environment can feel really empty and lacks that human support.
It really does.
This kind of complex structure also brings up some valid concerns about governance, right? Especially when you try to scale it.
Yes, external scrutiny is warranted. There have been reports about potential conflicts of interest in related schools, where board members were also affiliated with the vendors supplying the expensive learning platform.
So the people running the school were also selling the tech to the school.
Potentially. And when a system is this new and this concentrated, you just need transparent external audits to make sure the priority stays on student outcomes and not just vendor profits.
The founder is also very clear that you can't just drop this AI tutor into a normal 6-hour classroom and expect it to work. It requires a total rebuild.
It's an unavoidable cost. The old model is designed to sell 6 hours of time, often inefficiently. This AI model is designed for mastery, which leaves this huge 3-hour hole in the afternoon. If you don't rebuild the day to fill that time with things that make kids love school projects, life skills, they won't have the motivation to focus in the morning. The cultural rebuild is just as important as the tech.
So finally, let's put all these claims into the broader academic context. What does the research on intelligent tutoring systems, or ITS, say? Is Alpha a total outlier, or does it fit a pattern?
Well, a big review of 28 studies on IIS in K-12 schools does confirm that generally these systems work better than a traditional classroom.
So personalized is better than one size fits all. No surprise there.
Right. But, and this is a really important nuance, the effect is often mitigated when you compare these advanced, AI-driven intelligent tutoring systems to simpler, non-intelligent tutoring systems.
So just a basic computer program that makes you master a topic before moving on, but doesn't have all the fancy adaptive AI.
Exactly. And several major studies found no significant difference in learning gains between the two. This suggests that the biggest benefit might not be from the complex AI, but from the simple behavioral shift to mandatory mastery and instant feedback. The AI just helps you scale that to millions of individual learning paths.
So the academic community's recommendation is much more cautious than Alpha's all-in approach?
Very cautious. The consensus is that these systems should be used to supplement the classroom, not replace the teacher. They're a great tool to help kids who are struggling or to help with teacher shortages. But Alpha's model goes way beyond that. It demands a complete overhaul, with the AI replacing the human as the primary source of instruction.
So when you pull it all together, what does this mean for the future of education? The biggest insight here isn't just about test scores, is it? It's about fundamentally changing the equation of childhood.
It completely flips the script. The question is no longer, how much stuff can we cram into a kid's head in 6 mandatory, often wasted hours? The question becomes, what can a kid do with the other 22 hours of the day once their core academics are mastered efficiently?
They've undeniably built a breakthrough product. Kids learning 10 times faster. And that gives them the most valuable currency there is, which is time. But you mentioned there's a lot of cultural resistance to scaling this.
That's the challenge of scaling something weird. The resistance isn't because the results are bad. It's because the system signals nonconformity. It's socially comfortable and easy to send your kid to a prestigious traditional school, even if the actual learning gains there are marginal. The familiar is often more powerful than the effective.
And the founder sees that resistance as a market opportunity.
It's a classic entrepreneurial vision. The goal is to scale their time-back platform globally, to be like a Shopify for schools. Let other entrepreneurs build their own specialized schools for esports, for finance, for the arts, all built on top of this core 10x learning engine. They believe that's the only way to attract the talent and capital you need to fix a $1 trillion problem.
It's a massive societal experiment. If these claims are true, if a kid can master K-12 in half the time, we have to rethink the entire structure of growing up.
We do. And that leads to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. If the average student can complete their K-12 academics in 6 focused, mastery-based years, the system is essentially gifting them 7 extra years of childhood and young adulthood. So the question for all of us is, how would you use that time? What would you do with 7 freed-up years to pursue a passion, to achieve mastery, to explore your human potential? And what obligation does society have to help guide the use of that time once the old constraints of the classroom are gone?